Hello and welcome to the Art Class Curator podcast. I am Cindy Ingram, your host and the founder of Art Class Curator and the Curated Connections Library. We're here to talk about teaching art with purpose and inspiration, from the daily delights of creativity to the messy mishaps that come with being a teacher. Whether you're driving home from school or cleaning up your classroom for the 15th time today, take a second, take a deep breath, relax those shoulders, and let's get started. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to welcome Madalyn Gregory back to the podcast. Hi, Madalyn.
Hello.
We are today going to do another art discussion, art conversation, and we have done one in the past, and you can go back and check that out. We talked about Death and Life by Gustav Klimt. Today, we're going to talk about The Anguish of Being and the Nothingness of the Universe by Marcos Raya. And so I thought we would start by just describing it for the listeners, and we will put this in the show notes so you can go onto the show notes and check out the image of the artwork when you're not driving. But Madalyn, you want to start with a description?
Oh man, it's just there's so much. Okay. So it is circular, and I don't have a good gauge of how big it is.
It's big. I saw it in person this weekend at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, and it was bigger than I expected it to be.
It says 176.5 centimeters overall. So,
and my American brain does not understand that.
Exactly.
70 inches.
70 inches. Okay. Yeah, that's bigger than I am. It's taller than I am.
Oh, it's exactly my height. So no, it's 5.8. I'm 5'8", but that's not 5.8 is different. Anyway, we're rambling. Yeah, so it was big. It was way large. Bigger than I expected.
Wow, that's cool. Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, it's circular around the border, just because that's simple. I'll go there first. It's it has like a black circle and then it fades out to white. But in the center, there is this strange, majestic being. It kind of reminds me of a skeleton, especially around the nose and the mouth. It almost looks like teeth, but then his eyes are open sockets that have stars and the universe and, celestial things going on. And there's like these I guess like canonical like eyebrows, I guess you could say. There's like 3 layers on each eye, and then there's also a couple that come down around his mouth, almost like a mustache. And then behind him there's, I don't know if you'd call it hair or if it would be like a an outfit of some kind, but it goes up in orange and yellow and green and a little bit of white, like shoots. This is a really hard one to describe.
Enjoying it.
Because there's also like an edge, because on the side, like where his neck would be, I guess there's green, but there's an edge that follows it that looks like cardboard to me. Like whenever you look at the side of a cardboard and it has, and then there's so much, like, it looks like a being, but it also looks like it could be like a spaceship opening. Like, it's very strange and ethereal and amazing. And that was super probably not helpful.
No, that was, I'm trying to imagine. I should have not been looking at it as you said that, because I was trying to imagine if I had never seen this, what I would have thought of your description. But yeah, it's basically like it to me, it looks like you're looking into, like you're in the skeleton's head. Like you are the skeleton, because you're looking out through his eyes. There I go saying his again, but I guess the artist is he, and this is potentially representing him. So I'll try to say they though. And then the mouth curves, so like it's a concave.
Right. Cave is the and convex.
We're both doing hand gestures.
Totally not helpful for listening.
So if you're just imagine my hand is doing a motion, and so it's like we're inside his head, essentially. Their head. Yeah. And I think that, yeah, just go to the show notes and look at it if that didn't make any sense, because it's a good description. As you were talking, I was like, this one would be good for the drawing description game, because
Oh
I
yeah.
never thought about that with this artwork before, but this would be really fun to describe. So if y'all don't know that listening, you have one student describe the artwork and the other student draws it, and based on the description. And maybe the listeners, before they check out the show notes, should go back and listen to your description, then draw
Yeah.
it, and then see what happens. And then they can send it to us in an email.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing because this will come up with all sorts of things. But it really it reminds me almost of like a 60s sci-fi movie poster.
Mm.
Like I keep thinking of 2001 or something, which was much more minimalistic than this is, but yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, I can see that reference too, especially because of the roundness. And in 2001, they had that, the
Mm-hmm.
HAL was this round light thing. So what do you think it means?
Oh man, I have so many thoughts and so many tangents that my brain could go on because yeah, especially now that you've said it's like we're looking through their head almost, or their body. Like it really does, because the way, like you said, like the teeth are concave too. So like you really are like stepping into this, and it makes me think of other people's perspectives, but it also makes me think of, because it looks so alien and because we've got the stars and all that, it makes me wonder about, the wider perspective of the universe. And like I have a tattoo of Orion, the constellation, on my arm. And the reason I did that was because it, helps me remember that there's a bigger life out there, and there's bigger worlds, and there's other people, and there's other planets, and who the heck knows. And just to put things all in perspective. And that's really my initial reaction to this, is just try to remember all of the everything.
Yeah, I love that. That's really what I see in this too. I especially see the connection between the personal and the universal, because most of the canvas is him or them inside. It's because it feels like it's me. So it's, most of it is the person. We see the universe through the glasses, and we see the universe is just through the teeth, and then also along the side. But then the rest of it is presumably the inside of this person's skull. And we're seeing color, and we're seeing tubes, and we're seeing pattern, and we're seeing like these little eye-shaped things. I don't know if those are like bones or stitches or so. So we're just seeing all of this stuff going on the inside. And it feels to me like some sort of representation of, I don't know if it's a mental health issue or some sort of disturbance, I think, inside the brain. It just doesn't feel like very, very peaceful inside this head.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that, because it is like the colors are like really rich, but it's kind of off-putting. It's kind of like, I don't know, like watching a surgery video, or sometimes I remember I have a skeleton and I get real freaked out. It kind of like brings that not anxiety, but just I think we can walk around feeling we are our thoughts, and we're what we do, but we're a sack of meat for to a certain extent. And I see that here, it's not yeah. And there's, we didn't mention it, but there's this line that goes up from the nose area up to the top, the border, and it look like there's lines that crisscross about halfway between, and it looks almost like a line drawing of a star, or like a dandelion. Sometimes you'll see them drawn that way. But yeah, I feel like that kind of connects to what you were saying with the mental health part, maybe where the brain would be, and the spark of everything that we are, but
you know what that also could be is the third eye.
Oh yes,
like this a symbol for intuition
for it. Yeah.
I'm wondering if that line is maybe us seeing through space too. Like there's maybe the space is like coming, the light is kind of breaking through from the stars into his head.
Yeah, that almost makes me think like Big Bang and like the moment of creation and all that. Like it's just right there, followed us through.
Yeah. So it's like you in your own head, you're wrapped up in your issues, your thoughts, your stories, your anxieties, your day-to-day life. And it feels really all encompassing. It feels really overwhelming. And it feels really, especially when you're going through a rough patch, it feels really like cloudy. I think in your own space, like I'm talking from my own personal experience. And I think that this really captures that really well.
It reminds me of the quote, "You are the sky, everything else, it's just the weather." Pema Chodron said that. And I believe that she's a Buddhist monk. I could have that wrong. But yeah, like you are the sky, everything else, it's just the weather. And like here we're seeing the sky, like literally like the universal sky. And yeah, it's very like the weather is what captures our attention, but it's not really who we are at the end of the day. Like it's not who we are inside, but it still shapes how we see the world.
Yeah. Oh, I love that quote. I've never heard that one before. And I think that, this helps me remember, and it's kind of what you had said too, is that we are the universe. Like I am, everything that is in me was once stars and planets and dust. And I am now a person because all of those things came together and created me. And somehow in that process created my consciousness, which then allows me to know that I'm a part of this universe and to know that I'm part of the sky. And it puts your day-to-day issues into perspective.
Yeah, like it's interesting to me because I love that it's Carl Sagan that said we're all star stuff or whatever. But also like I also like the fact that every time you drink a big glass of water, like statistically at least one of those little water atoms in there like was dinosaur pee at some point. And
I didn't know that.
Sounds like a really weird thing, but like it makes it mundane at the same time. It's like this huge universal big majestic amazing life that we're living, but also like dinosaur pee. And I've got to get my kid to rehearsal, and like it's just like we can't, I guess it's the duality of life, because we can't always be in this celestial headspace because that's just not what life allows. But also, like, it's kind of beautiful that, like I like the dinosaur pee, like that it's real and it's true, and it's like it's just like life is messier. I mean, and even here in the stars that we see through his eyes, and I don't know all the terms, but like there's like some cloudy, like birth of new planet
nebula.
Yeah, like there's new things happening there, but like that's a very violent like process in the universe. Like that's not something like calm and meditate. Like that's like a lot of explosion. It's probably not an explosion, but stuff had to happen. Stuff had to crash into each other and burn. And, like it's just not. I think it's messy, and like I see that here in this, and you talk.
No, I'm just like sitting here like, oh, Madalyn is so good. I also, what's something I'm also noticing too is, so you're talking about like the complexity of space and how it's like, it's not this sort of blue space with dots on it, that it is like all of those are light from a long time ago, explosions from a long time ago, all this tumultuous stuff happening in the universe, but it's so complex and it's so chaotic. But then also it makes me think of how complex we are
Mm.
and our bodies are. And I think that shows that in here, you have the little like tube looking things above his eyes, which are like in the eyebrow shape, but to me, they look like maybe like optical nerves or veins or like, some sort of something. And then they have these lines coming off of them. It looks like maybe like those are, to me, they look like they could be representing nerves. But, the inside of us and like the whole complex system of our bodies are so complicated, and we don't have to do anything. I'm just here and I'm alive and I'm breathing and my heart is pounding and I'm talking and I'm thinking, and like my body is just letting all of that happen. It's 1,000 different things, 1,000,000 different things are happening in my body right now to allow this conversation to take place.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that, we can look up at the sky and we just see like the pretty stars that have come to us, and we don't see like everything that had to happen to make that happen. Just like we don't see everything that's going on in our bodies, like unless something starts to hurt or like do something it's not supposed to, like we're just not aware of it. And yeah, like I see that in the artwork too. Like I wonder, like we talked about like the kind of corrugated cardboard edge, and there's, I think, like what do the lines represent? Like, are there nerves? There are also these lines that are like coming out from his mouth that because of the way they're angled, they almost look like Roman numerals.
Yeah.
But they just are like little eye shapes or capital I's, I guess. But I feel like everything has a metaphorical meaning happening, because even like there's 3 of the teeth are missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what does that represent? Like, is that, something more from the artist specifically, or is that, but even then, like, is that the wounds, or is that like pains that have happened? Because it's hard to, see that.
Yeah, to me, it looks like he is broken in many ways. Like he's got the missing teeth. There's this above his mouth. There's these sort of white things that come together, and then there's like these little blue lines that look like stitches. Like there's like that part is sewn together, and then maybe those Roman numerals could be like staples or something. It's like it almost looks like he's not this sort of like perfect, pristine, fit self. Like there's messiness and brokenness and humanity represented in here.
Yeah, for sure. And one area we haven't really talked about is, I guess, what maybe is like the throat or the esophagus or something. But it's got these little, almost like a wave lines that go up toward the mouth. To me, they almost look like steps, kind of. And, it's making me think of, the thing, like his mouth is open and we see the stars, but like from the internal space of our bodies, like what we hold inside, like there's all these unseen processes happening, but also there's all the things that we are aware of that we do think about that we don't share or we don't say. And like, I don't know, it's just making me think of like our throat is like a ladder and for our voice, and we don't like climb that ladder a lot. I do. I feel like those are like the steps we have to take to like share ourselves, because we are all like in this encasing looking out at the world, and the only way that we can, be in community with others is to actually communicate. Oh, I never thought about that. Community and communicator real close.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see that too, like that being his throat. And it looks like, it doesn't feel like he is going to talk. It feels like he is actively keeping it down. And I don't know what is giving me that impression, but to me, it feels like he has something to say, but is not saying it, or doesn't want to say it, or can't say it.
Yeah, it's very like pristine looking, kind of like going back to the 2001 thing. Like it all looks like, even though it's like complicated and there's broken parts, like none of them are bloody. None of them are like, it's like it's fixed now, and like we put ourselves back together and we're whole and everything's fine, and like it feels like he's not or they're not like allowing that to come out. And I think that fits too with the fact that we're like inside of their head, because we don't get that perspective. We don't get that inner perspective. And even, whenever we do try to communicate, it doesn't always come out right. So it feels like they are like trying to be proper, and we are just like getting insight into what it actually feels like to be inside this person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. That's how I now I'm wondering, like, depending on who's looking at this, I want to put like 10 people in front of this and see if they're how they feel being in this person, because to me, it does not feel comfortable.
No.
I feel like I am not enjoying necessarily looking at this for a very long period of time. I mean, like, I'm enjoying the conversation about art. I think it's amazing, but it is making me feel a certain way. Like, and it's not letting up. It's just getting me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it's hard to imagine looking at this and being like, oh, that's cool. Or like, I don't know, maybe it's like a Led Zeppelin, like, let's like listen to music and have experiences or whatever, like maybe in that. But yeah, like just looking at it, I'm very, I feel stress, I think is what it is. Like, I feel, like what you were saying earlier about everything that our bodies do and all that. Like, it reminds me of I Contain Multitudes. But like also like there's that book about all of the bacteria that lives in us. It's like a very significant part of what our body is, and like that's all he called it. I Contain Multitudes. Which I think is brilliant, because it goes back to that like mundane and universal thing, that like that's all commingling. Like, it's not separate. You can't have one without the other. And yeah, I feel that in this. It's like we're looking at like the messy parts that we pretend aren't messy.
Yeah. And it's painted very smoothly and very precisely. There's not a lot of, you can't really see his brushwork. You can't, the gradients are just so smooth. And that is really interesting to me too, because even though he made it so smooth, it does feel so messy.
Yeah, I feel like that's a part of what makes it so impactful, is that it is so pristine, because I feel like, if it would be much different artwork if like, there were big splotches of color on the canvas or whatever, like it just wouldn't have the same feeling.
Yeah. It's funny, when we were talking about what artwork to do today, I suggested this one and you're like, ooh, that one creeps me out. So and I was like, oh, that makes it good. That good to talk about. But now I'm like, oh, this creeps me out too, the longer I look at it. So what do you think about the cardboard situation? Like, why cardboard?
It's interesting to me because, like life does, like I very recently like heard something else about this, which was that the reason that cardboard has that, piece that it goes up and down or whatever, like it actually adds a lot of strength. And the thing I saw, it was talking about how, brick walls could actually be built like that. And so if you're not worried about space and stuff, it actually is much stronger. So, the fact that that's like the edge, like that's like his skin, it's, it's protecting them from whatever is outside and from all of this turmoil in the universe and these, nebulas that are being born. But also like the fact that it looks like cardboard, like we all know, like, yeah, cardboard will come across the country or across the world and whatever's inside of it will be safe. Or maybe like it got a little bit wet and then everything's broken. And like it's like it's something that can protect and can contain, but it's not impervious, and it will, like, even here, like it's opened up.
Yeah, it's strong and protective, but it's impermanent. It's not, it's something, it's disposable. It's something that will eventually have to be replaced.
Yeah.
Which
But
is true of our, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But which is true of our bodies as well. Like they are impermanent. We are bags of meat that will eventually become stars. And,
flowers or, dinosaur pee.
Dinosaurs probably come again.
Yeah, why not?
If not on Earth, somewhere else.
They're birds, they're chickens. It's fine.
That's true.
But yeah, I think that really is speaking to the fact that, this perspective that we're looking through is temporary.
Yeah.
It's not going to be here. And, that kind of makes me feel a little bit less like,
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, because
it made me feel better.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so like the fact that this is open, like they are allowing us, and they are allowing us to like look at the universe through their eyes, and that's like really special. Like when would we do this? Like I feel like people. There's always stories whenever people are close to dying or they're getting older, or, where they want to impart knowledge and they want to like. Advice is the thing that you do whenever, you're trying to make everything neat and better for whoever you're talking to. And like it does, it feels less scary because that's also a universal thing. Everybody goes through it. Everybody dies.
Yeah. It made me just feel kind of a sense of relief once we started to talk about that. Like, oh, this is temporary. All pain will end eventually. And then you will be whatever you believe will happen after you die. And I think that's really, yeah, it's very soothing. And also it made me think too, that it is kind of a privilege to see through this person's perspective, because we don't show people our full range of pain and our full range of joy and our full range of anything, because every individual person is so filled with all of their experiences, their trauma, their thoughts, and even if we did try to show it, we can't ever really fully show who we are to someone else.
Yeah. Language is imperfect, and like you can't be in someone else's body. Like I think that's why Freaky Friday has been remade so many times, because like just that, like the idea of walking around in someone else's shoes literally is scary, but like how different would the world be? Like, with all of there's a lot of disagreement in the world. There always has been, but whenever it seems to spike, there's, articles and stuff will come out about like how to talk to people you disagree with, or, and like the biggest thing that they all say is like, don't go in trying to change somebody's mind. And like, you have to listen, because we don't listen to each other. So if you're not going to listen, they're not going to listen. And like, I don't know. I do really wonder what life would be like if we could just like, even for a little while, even in like a cardboard box, like feel what other people have felt, because there's no good way to do that.
Yeah, it made me think of this, and this is a really nerdy reference. That's not even it's a reference from someone else, but my husband told me about this video game that he plays, and I don't know the name, so I apologize. If you're just dying to know, you can email me and I can ask him. But he says that in the game, you can see other people's memories. So like you can step into a character and kind of look around in their memories and then in their experiences, and then you can come back to your own character. And he says it's the most fascinating thing because it makes him think about what it would be like to do that with another person. It's like the closest he can get to doing something like that. But I mean, everything that the person sees, everything that they think.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's the whole nature versus nurture thing, but it's both, and it's always been both. And we can't account for that. We don't have an abacus that can like, okay, if you do this and you do this, then this is the person that you want. Like, it's just not, even if we could, it's not clear to us, and it never will be. So, I mean, art, I think, is one of the only ways to try to experience that.
Yeah. So I had another thought about the cardboard. It also, I think, could be a mask that the artist has created to show the world. So like that is, we're seeing sort of the inside of the person, but then that cardboard could be what they show to the rest of the world. So maybe it's showing that it's not real, it's fake. Whatever they're portraying to the world is fake.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's super relatable, because I think we do all, like, I remember I had this point early in adulthood where I was like, am I just like lying to everybody all the time? Because like, I feel like I'm one person with this person. I'm one person with this person. Like, what is happening? Like, what is wrong with me? And like, it took me way too long to realize that like, that's just being a human. And like, that's just being a person. Because like, you are going to, different sides of yourself are going to come out. The whole, I contain multitudes, and which multitudes are being shown depends on the situation. And yeah, so I think we give ourselves a really hard time for like the masks we wear or whatever, but I also don't know how else we could really do it. And I don't know, maybe with the right people in the right situation, like your mask is more representative of, the blood and bone beneath, or it just, yeah.
Yeah. I had a similar moment in my life where I would feel for a long time really, I think, guilty that I wasn't telling everybody everything that was going on with me. So it was like, if I kept something to myself of like, oh, this is just something I want to think about for me, I want to read about, I want to read. Like, I felt like to be an open, honest person, I have to share that with everybody. And then I would feel guilt about that. And ultimately I was like, it became this weird battle in my head. And then I felt like I was lying to people by not telling them these sort of personal things. And I still do that. And I don't know where that comes from. I have to keep telling myself to like, stop. You don't need to tell everybody everything. Like, but it feels dishonest for some reason.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I've also heard like people coming at it from the complete opposite side of like, you don't owe anybody anything. Like, you don't owe your story or your truth or like any of that. And it, like, yeah, I think I still do have at least a little bit of a battle raging inside, because it is like, that's true. I do 100% agree that like, you don't owe anybody like your life story or whatever. But also, like, how do, like, I guess it's just a matter of like the masks, because we don't, trust has to be built and space has to be built for that. And like, there's reasons that we wear masks, because we've all been hurt and we've all been, told things, and I think sometimes we don't even see the masks. We don't even know they're there, because that takes work to see it and to be able to take it off.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what the artist is saying here. Like, he's done the work, or he's trying to do the work, at least for this specific mask. So here, I'm going to take it off and let you look through it.
Oh, yeah. So maybe this isn't, maybe we're not looking through his perspective, but we're looking through the masks of this one mask's perspective. Oh, no, hold on. I'm confusing myself. So no, I don't think that's true. Because then we wouldn't have the bones. The mask doesn't include the bones and the veins and things.
Well, maybe it does,
though.
I think it could, because, like, I don't know how scientifically accurate it is, but I think we've all heard, like, your cells get replaced every 7 years or whatever. And so your taste buds change and, like, all this, like, we are literally physically not the same person we were as a child and as, 10 years ago or whatever. Like, we are constantly being renewed. So I think it would make sense for the bones and the teeth and the veins and everything to come along with. It's like, maybe it's even more substantial than, this is the mask I wear around people. Like, this is like the person I was. And you still carry that person forward, I think. But like, just the other day, my teenager was saying, oh my goodness, like, I can't believe, like, I know I was like that when I was 12, but like, like, I'm like, and even said, like, every couple of years, it's like I look back and I hate, like, everything that I was. And I'm like, okay, I feel like that's maybe a little strong. But also, I don't think it ever goes away. I think if you're not looking back every few years and like, like, what was I thinking? Like, that's a sign of growth. That's a sign of, like, embracing the change that is always there. And
I can relate to that a lot, because I have this problem where I think of if I haven't seen someone in a long time, I just assume they start to hate me. It's a problem. I've always done it. That's why I'm like, it's been a year. They definitely hate me. A year later, I'm like, oh, definitely. I mean, it's just it's an anxiety problem. But I also then, when faced with talking to that person again after it's been a long time, I'm like, well, gosh, I'm a different person than I was when I saw you 3 years ago. And so, are you still like, am I still going to like you? Are you still going to like me? And so it's just this constant, like, I don't know where I'm going with that, but whatever you said just resonated.
Yeah, I think, and like you said, like, oh, what is it going to be? Like, you don't know until you know. And I think that's why everybody does, like, have that feeling. Like, if you're going to see somebody you haven't seen in a long time, it's like, like, I don't know, maybe there are some people out there that don't feel like that, but in my experience and when I've talked to people, like, that's something that everybody feels. And sometimes you get there and, like, it's like no time has passed. And sometimes you get there and you're like, oh, like, this is not, the switches are not, like, clicking anymore. So, and I think that's fine. And I think that the hard thing and the scary thing, but the good thing ultimately is just to keep, trying to connect, whether it is somebody from 3 years ago or whether it's somebody you met yesterday or whatever. Like, you can't connect unless you're trying to connect, and you can't take off your mask and let somebody else hold it or see it or look through it unless you're actually, like, realizing that you have a mask.
Oh, okay. So good. But I am going to completely change the subject because I just realized something about this artwork. I got a sense of relief for a bit after we talked about the impermanence of life and cardboard, but I am back to feeling uncomfortable because I just realized I have been looking at this artwork as if it is my father.
Oh,
like he's been popping in my head. The entire conversation just keeps just nuggets here and there. My biological dad was an alcoholic, and he had divorced. My mom and dad divorced when I was 5. And then when I was in the 3rd grade, he sort of disappeared. And then I didn't know he was an alcoholic till years later. And he would kind of come in and out of my life for a while. And then eventually he died when I was in college. But he was missing teeth last time I saw him. He had a rough life. That, the alcoholism just kind of destroyed his life. But he was missing teeth. And so I think that's my main reason that I'm, seeing the missing teeth. But then also to give you a little bit of information about the artwork, what we know about this artwork is, and I had read that before we had this conversation, it says, this artwork depicts an inside-out view of the artist's head as he explores the social impact of technology on humanity. And then it says, along with his personal battle with alcoholism. So I kind of had alcoholism on my brain already. And I was like, oh, I can see that, the alcoholism in the artwork. I can kind of see that. And the reason I can see it is because of the missing teeth. And I have that personal connection.
Oh.
And so I'm just looking at this, and I'm, I've worked my whole life through the trauma of that experience. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it or anything, but as an adult who has struggled with mental health issues, I look at my dad differently than I did when I was a child. As a child, it was abandonment, it was anger, it was sad, just deep, deep sadness. But as I've gotten older, I really wish that I knew him. Like I knew who he was, and I knew what was going on in his head and what his true thoughts and feelings are, because now I do know more about alcoholism. I know more about addiction and disease, and that it's a disease. And I could never accept that as it being a disease when I was younger. That didn't explain away the pain, that never could explain away the pain of being left and abandoned. But now I look on it and I'm like, I just want to know what he was like. I want to know what he was thinking. I want to know, but I don't know. And so I'm looking at this and I'm seeing like this broken, toothless, kind of stitched together person who looks like they're in a great deal of pain, who looks like, they've got their voice cut off. And that's how I feel about my dad, is I didn't get to hear his story. I never got to hear his story. And so when I'm looking at this, that's like, maybe I am going to cry about it, but that's what I'm seeing. Is like, I think it is making me feel maybe more connected to him as a person than I typically ever allow myself to think about,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's that.
Yeah. I mean, that's perfect though, that like, because that is what we've been talking about. And I mean, we don't always get that opportunity. And even when we do, it's not always satisfying to like know what was happening, because I think a lot of people can't articulate it. And even if we can, it's not going to be the complete story. And so, yeah, like what a gift it would be if he could hand you a mask and be like, this is what it was like. And yeah, we don't get to do that. And we have to focus on, like you said, you have to heal yourself, really, most of the time, to even get to the point where you're like, okay, but what was it like from their side? And yeah, it's really hard. Like, I don't have a great relationship with most of my family. And, I'll talk to my grandmother sometimes. And one conversation we've had again and again is that I want to know more about the family history, because it, kind of got erased whenever her parents came here. And I want to know that. And she's said many times that she'll send me, stuff that she has. She'll send me pictures, and she'll like write it out, or she'll like tell me, or we'll do this whole thing. And then it never happens. And I know that the years where that will even be possible are getting smaller and smaller. And yeah, so much is lost and not being able to connect. And I don't know, maybe if everybody made art. Like, what if like every family sat down to dinner and then also made art? Or like, like I want there to be a way for us to see behind the masks. And
Yeah, it's something I do try with my children is I want to make sure that they see me as human, that they do see that I have feelings, that they do see when I'm, when I'm hurting or when, I don't want them to look at me and just always see this sort of happy mom that just has her shit together. Like,
yeah.
I need them to see that it's okay to be human. It's okay to have feelings. It's okay to feel pain. It's okay. Like all of these things, it's okay. Because I feel like that is something that I missed out on. I mean, I guess I saw the brokenness of my dad, but I was too close to it too.
Yeah, I think it's a balance for sure. Because, I definitely saw the brokenness of my parents, but not in like a healthy, like, I'm going to be real with you child
Yeah.
way. And I think I constantly walk that tightrope with my kids too, because I do want them, because people have that story of like, that's the moment I realized like my dad wasn't perfect or whatever. Like, I don't know if my children had that experience. I kind of hope they didn't though, because like, especially whenever you're an authority figure to someone else, it's very easy to not be vulnerable at all with them.
Yeah.
Or to think that being vulnerable with them is big red X, don't do that. And I don't think that's true. I think there's a way to, balance it. And we're not always going to get it right because, human. But, at least trying. I think that's something that this generation of parents is doing more than, at least, yeah, I don't know, in the US maybe. But we'll see. But I do think that that's something that's happening more, and I'm very interested to see how our kids grow up and how their kids grow up. And
Yeah. Oh, so many topics in this artwork.
I know I keep thinking about the ring around the edge too.
Oh yeah,
because I mean it's very for the most part it's very even, but the thing that keeps ringing in my head is like if you look at like the evolution family trees that they'll do, that's a circle and like it comes out and there's a line for the species and that species and they all like branch off the tree of like it makes me think of that, like the tree of life or the bush of life depending on which one you're looking at, but they all kind of have that, all the lines. And like and it makes me think that like all those lines are like, I've heard John Green say this. I don't know if it's actually from him though, but he talks about all the people that loved him into being.
Oh yeah.
And there's the people that loved us into being and there's people that affected us maybe not with love, but like all of that and all the star stuff, like I feel like that is everything converging to make this.
Oh, I love that. I don't have anything to say other than I'm looking at it through that lens. And I think that is so neat. Okay. So let's talk about the title.
Yes.
Because it has a good title.
It's so good.
And so we often, when I'm sharing artwork with students, I don't ever tell them the title until after we've had the conversation because you don't want it to like sway what they're thinking. But this title is called The Anguish of Being and the Nothingness of the Universe.
Dang, that's like, I'm a little bit depressed just hearing it, but it's so good.
But it fits exactly what we've been talking about, the anguish of being. Like being a person is hard. The human experience is hard. I was watching the Oprah and Prince Harry series they did on mental health. It's called The Me You Can't See. And they chronicle different people's mental illnesses and throughout I'm about halfway through. I think there's 7 episodes, but Lady Gaga was on there and, she's talking about her trauma she experienced after being raped and all of her mental health issues. And she was like, and they were like, well, what was going on in your life, while you were experiencing all this pain and depression and stuff? She's like, I won my first Oscar, and I'm like, and she's like, people look at me and I have privilege and I have money and I have all of this stuff. She was like, but the human, I forgot who said it in the show, but it was the human experience still applies, or the human existence still applies, that, no matter who you are in any walk of life, wherever you are, you're still human. It's still the anguish of being is still hard.
Yeah. And goodness, even that title ties in perfectly. The me you can't see. Because I think where where does all of that come from? Where is it just that we're so alone that we're trapped in our own heads? Is that what causes the human condition? I don't even.
Yeah. When did it start? Did cave people, Paleolithic people have anxiety?
They were out there making their art and telling light shows. They were. I bet they did.
Surely they did, right? Our brains are the same.
Yeah. They didn't have to, deal with the technology that he's talking about in this artwork, but also they were having to run from creatures that were trying to eat them. So I bet that wasn't great. I don't know. It's what's the cure for the human condition? Let's solve this on this podcast. But also, yeah, it's so sad that it's so universal, but it's also comforting in a way. But also, I don't know, we just have to do the little things that we can do to make it better, however we can.
Yeah.
And at least we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
Didn't get talked about before.
Yeah. I like that doing the little things. I'm looking back at the artwork, and earlier I was thinking that I didn't feel like there was a lot of hope in this picture at the beginning. To me, it was just, I was feeling stressed about it. I didn't see a lot of hope. But now that I'm looking at it through the lens of, okay, we're all experiencing this anguish of being. We all have our main job is to find those moments of joy, the things that bring us peace and happiness. And so maybe the areas where he is stitched together in the artwork, and the little light, the little burst of light on his forehead, or, the ability to see the vastness of space and experience it and sense it through just having five senses. It's pretty awesome, or more than five. So now I'm starting to see there's more hope here, and he's alive, and he's here, which is hopeful in itself.
Yeah, because the stitches that we talked about earlier, they show that he had pain and brokenness, but also it shows the possibility for healing and for coming back together and just being able to go on. And I feel like, that's something that, I'm still recognizing in life, is that, the change is constant, and the pain is always there in one way or another. But it doesn't, as far as we know, there's no other way to live. There's no other way to be in this world without having that. We have both things. We have all the things. And I think it's interesting that it's the nothingness of the universe, because we can look at the universe at large and think, it's so empty, and it's it's barren, and it's scary, and but it's both. And that's what we've been talking about the whole time. It is anguish, but it's also ecstasy, and it's I feel like a lot of the language that we use to talk about this stuff is turned into platitudes, you can't have the good without the bad. And, I feel like I hear people's stories of, going through a life-changing experience, whether they're, talking about it or a book or whatever. And like, there's always this clarity that comes with like just accepting the fact that you're not ever going to have all like great positive days. Like the quote earlier, like you're the sky and everything else is the weather. Like finding that core within ourselves that exists regardless of the masks and regardless of the anguish. And that's all we can do. But also, like, maybe that really is enough, even though some days it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know that we get another choice, though. So
no, I don't think so.
we get to make it enough or not. And what good does that do? What good does it do to feel like it's not enough? It doesn't. So we might as well say that it is.
In the end, you're impermanent. In the end, you're infinite at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what happens, that remains true. So we have to do everything we can to feel at peace with that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good ending. I mean, I think that knowing us in 10 minutes, we'll realize we forgot something really big.
Right.
That happened last time, but I don't think there's a lot of race gender issues necessarily here that we need to talk through. I think we're good.
It's on the other side of the mask.
Yeah, that's the other side. You're right. All right. Well, okay. So this artwork, we have a lesson for this artwork in our membership, the Curated Connections Library, a complete lesson with activities, discussion questions, information, PowerPoint, worksheets, video. And you can see that we spent an hour talking about this artwork through a lot of different lenses. And I know that you might be listening and thinking, well, these two people spend a lot of time talking about art. So my kids can't come up with this kind of stuff, but I guarantee you that your students will surprise you. If you show them this artwork, you talk to them about these issues, like it will resonate with them. They will have lots to say, and it will be really a profound experience. So you can check that out at the Curated Connections Library. If you're not a member, you can join at artclasscurator.com/join. And thank you again, Madalyn, for joining me today.
Yes, I always love it. And always surprises me.
Yes, in the best ways possible. All right. Thank you all. I'll see you next week. When you're a teacher, one thing is certain: the lesson planning never ends. The Curated Connections Library is here to help with hundreds of art connection lessons and activities. Our signature SparkWorks lessons include everything you need to teach an artwork every single week. Each lesson features one diverse and captivating work of art and is complete with discussion questions, engaging activities to create deeper art connections, and related art project ideas. With unique worksheets and PowerPoint presentations, every lesson is classroom ready. Get your free SparkWorks lesson and take a break from lesson planning by going to artclasscurator.com/free lesson. Thank you so much for listening to the Art Class Curator podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and give us an honest rating on iTunes to help other teachers find us and hear these amazing art conversations and art teacher insights. Be sure to tune in next week for more art inspiration and curated conversations.